Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where and when you're watching this. Welcome back to another episode of the Two Footed Tackle podcast. I'm your host, Aris Matakos, and not only is it another episode, but it's episode 10. We've hit double figures. I like to think it's a milestone. And 10 episodes, 10 weeks in a row. So I've been doing this for just over 2 months, which is bizarre, even like pretty insane. Before we get through all the football, as always, sure to subscribe on YouTube, like the podcast, like the clips, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter at 2 Tackle Pod, at 2 Tackle Podcast even. Any engagement is very much appreciated. And then obviously on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, the whole lot pretty much. Just giving it as much love as you can goes a long way. So yes, I hope you all did well. I hope you all are well. I hope the week treated you well. Obviously, in a very tumultuous time we are in the world. I hope you all stayed safe, and hopefully the football acted as a bit of a distraction, and hopefully 45 minutes of me talking absolute rubbish about the round ball can act as a distraction as well. So we've got a lot to cover. Obviously, as always, the A-League, there was a derby that we have to speak about. Obviously the Premier League, a couple of interesting talking points throughout there. FA Cup midweek, which pretty much went smooth sailing as it could have gone, except for one team, which we'll touch on. A certain owner selling a certain club, which I have a certain affiliation to, which we'll touch on. And then obviously Serie A, La Liga, League One, Bundesliga, not a whole lot happened in most of those leagues. And then obviously we got who went in two-footed. And then the preview of the week's football, and European football is back. We have the second leg of the first bracket of the Champions League, and obviously the next round of the Europa League starting as well, and obviously some other Premier League and A-League action to look forward to. Now, let's start how we always start. You know the drill. A-League, we'll just go through the results because I didn't really find a lot of talking points throughout, so I'm not going to fabricate any. But Melbourne City 2, Perth 2, that happened during the week. Melbourne Victory beat Macarthur 3-1, so pretty dominant display from Victory there. Nick D'Agostino with a brace. Western United beat Newcastle 2-1. Western United are just keep on keeping on. John Aloisi's got them ticking over very, very well. And I know it's still early in the season, but they're a very good shout for winning the whole thing because they're just playing really efficient football. It might not be attractive, it might not be good on the eye, but it's definitely efficient, and you can't knock them for that. Central Coast beat Brisbane 2-1. Obviously, the Sydney Derby, Western Sydney Wanderers, obviously announcing the permanent signing of Mark Rudan as coach midweek, which threw up a lot of confusion and anger and frustration and all those 9 yards pretty much. And on a personal note, I was confused at the permanent signing because as an interim he wasn't even doing that well. But I mean, beating your arch rivals at home in a pretty comfortable fashion is a way to win the supporters' hearts, I can say that for sure. And then obviously Perth lost to Adelaide 2-1 at home to finish the round. With that, the title race is getting very, very slim. Obviously Melbourne City are up there, Western United are up there, Victory are clawing their way back up, so Macarthur are still in there. So still early on, still plenty of teams that can win it. Obviously with the finals and the whole playoff type thing in place in the A-League still. It really goes down to a one-legged game in most cases. But if you take a lot of solace in the Premiership or in the Premier's play, which I don't really do because you're fighting for the Championship, which is the winner of the finals. But if you do, then it's going to be interesting to see because it's the first time in a long time where we've got a couple of teams actually up there and competing. I know we've still got 2 months left of the season, or maybe a month and a bit. So there's still time to see how it all plays out. Now, enough of that, because it was pretty boring week of football, if I would put it politely. Let's move to the Premier League, which itself wasn't that exciting, but at least it had some talking points. We'll start with the Actually, no. Let's start with the FA Cup. Yeah, let's get that out of the way, because that happened midweek. Everyone got through, so nothing to talk about there. Everyone got through pretty comfortably. Oh wait, not everyone got through comfortably. Most teams got through comfortably, except Spurs. Now, they lost to Middlesbrough, who obviously beat United in the previous rounds. Is this an indictment on Spurs, or almost a summation of how good Middlesbrough have been in the FA Cup this season? I don't know. Spurs played a relatively strong side. It shouldn't have been an issue, but it somehow was. And Middlesbrough looked to be the potential banana skin for any other team that they come up against. And unfortunately for me, they drew Chelsea in the next round. I'm pretty sure anyway. So that's going to be something to behold, because Chelsea don't necessarily have we don't have the worst run against like upsetting teams. Like I would go as far as to say we're pretty upset proof. I can't remember the last time Chelsea going down to a lower league side in the cup. So hopefully that continues, because especially considering the heartbreak of the League Cup, I want to win some silverware at least this season. So yeah, that's it. That's out of the way. And the draws for the next round: Liverpool will versus the winner of Forest and Huddersfield, so they should go through. Crystal Palace Crystal Palace versus Everton, Southampton versus Man City, and as we said, Chelsea versus Middlesbrough. Maybe West Ham was the only shock that didn't go through, but I mean, I'm not really sure. I mean, Southampton versus West Ham in an FA Cup game, it's 50-50. Flip a coin. So, yeah, that's enough of the FA Cup. Moving to the Premier League, Leicester 2, Burnley nil to start the week. Pretty standard win for Leicester. They are slowly finding form in this back end of the season, because they were struggling early on, and they're slowly finding their feet. Obviously, Jamie Vardy comes on and completely changes the game, which shows that he still has it in the locker at 30 whatever years of age, because it for a second there, with the lots of Patson Daka and Iheanacho coming into the side and almost replacing him, it was a bit like wary for Vardy at this stage, but he proved to be. He's shown to be that, like, he's not anyone, like, he's not anything or anyone to mess around with, because he's still got it at his old age. He's still running around dominating games. So it's a good to see the elite do well, because of how, like, obviously the history that Vardy has in the league and what he's done. You want to see him do well for as long as possible. That leads on brilliantly to Leeds 0, Leicester 1 for the first game of the weekend. Jesse Marsh's first game. I thought Leicester played well. I thought obviously Leicester played well, and they didn't. Neither side dominated, but Leicester just had that inch of quality, which just had them over the line. And obviously Jesse Marsh with Leeds. Yeah, it's one of those things where, like I said last week, it's going to take a while, and I think they will go down, because of no one plays like Bielsa plays. And I know Jesse Marsh is probably a good replacement in terms of game style and like fitting into the team and like almost keeping that continuity, but it's going to take a long time, and it's going to take a relegation, in my opinion, for this Leeds side to turn around, because it doesn't work, in my opinion. And they played well. I thought they controlled periods of the game. That trademark high tempo, high octane, high intensity game was still there, but they looked a shadow of what they were under Bielsa at their peak, and they just don't have the quality. Obviously, Calvin Phillips is still out, Patrick Bamford's still out. They just yeah, like if they had those two players in the side, maybe they could salvage something. But then again, if they had those two players in the side, I don't think Bielsa would have been sacked. So it's a very touchy area to be, because you want leads in the league not for the integrity, but for the appeal of the league. You want the big clubs with a good stadium, with a good supporter bases in the league. But I don't see it, unfortunately. Moving on, Aston Villa 4, Southampton 0. Just your standard brilliance, really. It wasn't there for a game that finished 4-0. There wasn't a lot to talk about. I think it was just a solid, just domination from Villa from start to finish. They didn't. It wasn't like an 80% possession, 55 shots on target, 150 shots type game. It was just ruthlessly efficient going forward. Villa, just whenever they went forward, they looked dangerous. Obviously, Coutinho, Danny Ings, these guys just looked deadly going forward. And Southampton lacked that killer instinct. So it'll be interesting to see how far Villa go up the table. Obviously, there's still a month or two left in the season, so it'll be interesting to see how far they can go up the league, because when Gerrard took them over, they were battling in the relegation zone, and now they're up amongst mid-table. They're in 11th at the moment, so it'll be interesting to see that. And obviously Southampton, disappointing for them because they've been so good this season, but they shouldn't be worrying about that too much. Chelsea 4, Burnley 0. It was a game, the definition of a game of two halves. In the first half, Chelsea looked shit. They looked very bad. Burnley probably should have taken the lead going into halftime, but just this Tuchel, tactical masterclass for the second half, completely changed the game. Reece James is out of this world good. He's extraordinary. The difference in our attacking system when Reece James is on the pitch, it's night and day. It is seriously unbelievable how influential he is. And obviously once Chilwell comes back next season, we're going to be fit and firing once again. And you don't realise how important something is until it's not there. And we, as Chelsea, certainly had that realisation with Azpilicueta or Hudson-Odoi and Alonso or Saul playing on the flanks. It didn't work. With Reece James back, one piece of that puzzle is fixed. But yeah, blistering second half, blistering 15-minute patch where Chelsea put the game to bed. Nothing much more to say. Burnley are struggling. They've got a couple of games in hand, which is needed for them on the teams below them, but it's going to be a fight for them to stay up. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Newcastle 2, Brighton 1, two sides who are teetering on the edge of a relegation battle, but have enough quality so that they're not in one. I don't think Brighton are, and Brighton had such a good start to the season. It just hasn't worked for them yet, and Graham Potter is still doing an outstanding job with that team. And Newcastle, they're just winning. They're just winning and winning and winning, and they had to stay up, and I think they will. They just got too much quality for them not to. Norwich 1, Brentford 3. Finally, Ivan Toney has scored some goals, and he scored 3 of them. Granted, 2 of them were penalties, but you got to score them when they're there. And we all thought that Brentford, a lot of people had 3 up, 3 down at the start of the season. A lot of people looked at the promoted teams and thought, yeah, Norwich, Watford, Brentford, all straight back down. The quality's not there. I had Norwich sitting at about 14th pre-season, so obviously I got that majorly wrong. But I had Brentford sitting 15th, and I think I had Watford going down as well. But that Brentford prediction for me is something that I'm proud of, because they're just... I knew the ability and the tactical ability that their coach has. And with the likes of Ivan Toney, Sergi Canos, and that really solid midfield of Onyeka and the like, I thought they'd do well. And if Toney had hit form earlier on in the season, and it by this stage had 11, 12, 13 goals by this stage, I think they would have been higher up in the table and not even in the consideration for a relegation battle. But they went on this horrendous run of form, and they're still in it. Like they're only 6 points clear, and there's still a month and a bit, 2 months left in the season. So anything can happen. But if this can be the kickstart of Ivan Toney, then they should be fine. Liverpool won. Liverpool won, West Ham nil. I did laugh at this because for those who didn't see it, before I speak about the game, pre-match, I think you would have seen it because it was all over Twitter and Instagram and the like, but pre-match, there was a certain plane that flew over Anfield, and it was in reference to a certain West Ham centre-back who, to put it in jovial terms, he punted a cat across his living room. Now, obviously, that is horrendous, and obviously that he should be reprimanded, and I don't think he was fairly reprimanded. I think that he was let off lightly, but I'm in no position of control, so I can't change anything. But obviously, they flew a plane over Anfield with the lettering saying "Cat Lives Matter." I thought that is brilliant banter. I thought that is fantastic, and you need light in serious situations. So it's good to see that some banter has been thrown around regarding that. But Liverpool scraped through to beat West Ham. It was a Sadio Mane goal, which was Sadio Mane's one and only goal of the game, which sealed it. Liverpool are now 6 points behind with a game in hand. If they win that game in hand, they'll go 3 points behind. And then that Premier League final at the Etihad in a couple of weeks' time is going to be big. It's going to be big because that game decides the league. If Liverpool win, assuming everything goes well from here up until then for both sides, if Liverpool win, they'll go either equal on points, staying in second, or they'll leapfrog depending on goal difference. And if City win, they'll extend that gap, and it will be too much for them to catch, in my opinion. And the thing is with that game is City can get a draw, and it's still good because they still have that head start. So a draw or a win for City is perfect, but Liverpool must win. So it's going to be that game is going to be intense, and I reckon we're going to speak about that for a long time when that pod comes. Moving on to the Monday morning games for Australian time, or the Sunday games if you're in the UK. Watford 2, Arsenal 3. Arsenal are now favourites for top 4. Arsenal will get the 4th place because they've got a couple of games in hand, they've got enough quality, and they're just playing scintillating football. Like, it is seriously good how well Saka, Odegaard, Martinelli, Lacazette are playing as that front four. It is scary, and with the likes of Smith Rowe and that good double pivot of Partey and whoever partners him, it's just too good of a team with too many credits in the bank to not make top 4. And it's a credit to Mikel Arteta because I thought there were no chance at the start of the season, and a month into the season I thought they'd be lucky to get top 6, but he's done wonders with that squad, and for where they are right now, he's done an unbelievable job. So yeah, Arsenal will get top 4. I think you can wrap it up and put it on a silver platter, but yeah, it's weird because I was so certain on West Ham, but just something's happened in the last month where Arsenal just look too good, and yeah, there's not much more to say on that. What is it? What's the next game? What is the next game? Manchester City 4, Manchester United 1, and I want to take a certain direction when I speak about this game, because we all know about Man City, we all know about the quality they possess and everything around that, so we don't need to speak about that. We need to speak about Manchester United. Now, if you were to ask anyone at the start of the season that that on the 7th of March, Manchester United will be battered 4-1 away from home, be sitting in 5th place would be sitting 1 point off top 4, but the team in 4th having 3 games in hand. I wouldn't believe you, because it seemed pre-season, and I'm not saying that I necessarily agreed with this, but it seemed pre-season that United were 2 things: a certainty of a top 4 and potentially on for a title challenge. They had just signed Ronaldo, everything seemed to be going right, but something happened, and we don't necessarily know what. We can take a couple of guesses at it, but we don't know what's happened in the last, pretty much since the new year, to have derailed United under Rangnick. And obviously we didn't know that Ole was going to be sacked. Obviously not. And we didn't know the circumstances in which he would leave the club. But for reports to be saying that Ronaldo wasn't injured but refused to be in the squad because he wasn't in the starting 11, there's just something intangibly wrong with that club. And I agree with the sentiment that the fish rots from the head down, but you can't blame it just on the board, because there's something going on in that playing group where something's not clicking. And we need to look at where United want to be. Now, United don't want to be in the top 4, in terms of they don't want to be a top 4 team like Arsenal were between 2005 and 2018. They don't want to be just a top 4 team. They want to be challenging, right? So where do United need to be? Or what do they need to get? Or how do they become the United of 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011 again? For me, it's going to take a while, because it's almost as if they've rebuilt, but they've just stuffed it up. They've stuffed up a rebuild. And if you look at the squad that was left for David Moyes after Sir Alex, needed major overhauling. It was aging, it was dysfunctional, and that is more of a credit to Sir Alex than anything else, because if Sir Alex won a league with that team, that just shows he's the best manager ever, pretty much. Or if not, he's in the top 2, right? So it's this elitist mentality of we're Manchester United, we're the best team in England, we're the best team in the world, we're not going to be rebuilding. They're too proud as a football club to rebuild. And you look at Arsenal, who after Wenger tried to do that we're not rebuilding thing, it didn't work. Emery got sacked, and they were like, okay, we need to flesh this out. We need to gut this team out, get the youth in, get a young, hungry, exuberant manager, and look where they are already into their rebuild. United need that. And for me, what it's going to take is massive departures. Paul Pogba has to leave. Cristiano Ronaldo has to leave, in my opinion. They need to do something with Harry Maguire, whether that means get rid of him or something, I don't know. And they need to get a manager who is willing to be in a project and is hungry enough to get United where they need to get to. For me, that's Erik ten Hag. They need to get Erik ten Hag, and with Ralf Rangnick moving up into a backroom role, that's the perfect foundation. Rangnick, maybe not as a coach, but as a footballing mind, Ralf Rangnick is second to none. And with Erik ten Hag dictating tactics, doing all that managerial stuff, that's a fantastic foundation. Now it's onto the players. Massive departures, and you need to breed through the likes of Elanga. Give Rashford a role and not put the burden on him, but put that little bit of pressure on him. Say, hey, you're going to be the talisman this season. We're going to play you up front, or we're going to play you on the left wing the whole season. Win us games. Get us double digits in goals and assists this season. Something like that. Jadon Sancho. I think you can build that team around Bruno Fernandes. You can build that team around him. You can build it around Rafael Varane. And I've been very critical of Aaron Wan-Bissaka in the past, but there's something you can build on him there. They've got pieces. They just need to put it all together, and it's going to take massive egos and massive players, big names, to leave, in my opinion. And it's going to take a while, but United can get back to where they need to be in a blink of an eye, right? But it's going to need to take a rebuild, and it's going to need to take some patience, in my opinion. And they've got the flesh, they've got like the skeleton of the side. They just need to flesh it out, and they're not far off, but they need to get it right, because they've got it wrong for the best part of a decade. They need to get it right, and that's where I don't have faith in the board or if anyone in high positions at that club. And then we can talk about the Glazers forever. If you want to put the perfect blueprint out for how to fix United, you get rid of the Glazers without even thinking about it. But that's not how it works. And the likelihood is you're going to have to figure out a way to win a title with them in charge. So unless United fans want to resign themselves to the fact that they might never win a league with the Glazers in charge, then be my guest. But I think it's possible. You just need to things to click, and I don't think anything has clicked just yet. Now, moving on, but staying a little bit on topic, Roman Abramovich. Now, last week we obviously discussed how Roman Abramovich was not selling the club. He was just passing his stewardship onto the trustees and the charitable foundations of Chelsea Football Club. Now, they say a week's a long time in football, and gee, that couldn't be more accurate. It came out midweek. Roman Abramovich's best interest in the club was it for him to sell it. Now, bear with me because I want to speak about this sale from two perspectives. From a fan, it's hard. I'm going to try to word this in the best way I can. From a fan perspective, Roman Abramovich is the best owner of a football club there's ever been. He transformed the foundations of Chelsea Football Club. He brought success that has never been seen before at that football club, and he changed the way football has been played and has been marketed and the business behind it. He's the single greatest owner in the history of football, and the moments he's given Chelsea fans and Chelsea players and staff will never be replicated again. He's done more than the Man City owners. He's done more than any other owner in any other league in the world. Roman Abramovich was the best football owner ever. And from a fan perspective, you cannot disregard that just because purely what's happening, because you've built this 15-year more, since 2004, this 16, 17-year relationship with an owner who's completely transformed your football club. When Frank Lampard rounded, I think it was Jaska Leinen at the Reebok in 2005, conceding 15 goals in one season, the lowest ever in the Premier League. That night in Munich, that night in Porto, that night in Baku. I know it was the Europa League, but still, these moments. Yes, it's on Roberto Di Matteo or Thomas Tuchel or Frank Lampard or etc. But it comes back to where it was built, and Roman Abramovich is the best football club owner potentially ever. And it's So that's from a fan perspective. And in terms of the sale itself, from a fan perspective, it hurts. It hurts. Because we're not going to find an owner like him. And it's going to be sad to see the slow and inevitable decline of Chelsea Football Club. However, from a personal perspective, and from a logical perspective, and from a non-fan perspective, it was absolutely the right decision. Roman Abramovich's position as Chelsea owner in the current climate is untenable, and it's almost as if you can make the argument all day. Oh, if Putin didn't do this, or if Russia didn't do this, then we wouldn't be in this situation. Yes, fine, fair enough. You can make that argument, and that argument may or may not be correct or valid. But what is fact is that this has happened in the world. Roman Abramovich has this relationship with Vladimir Putin. It's untenable. You can't have this, relationship being involved in football. And you can say that this goes back to don't get politics involved in football, which is rubbish, because politics and football are intertwined. And if you say, and clubs picking and choosing what battles to support is blatantly obvious how much politics is involved in football, right? And if you don't think politics is involved in football, or you don't want politics to be involved in football, pick another sport, pick another entertainment genre, because they're intrinsically linked, right? Just like business and politics are intrinsically linked, because that's how the world works. And the more football and sport becomes a business, the more everything starts to get intertwined. And Rafa Benitez said a brilliant quote. It was something along the lines of, football is a lie. Football is a lie. These moments that you dream of in your head are a lie. You and the players and the coaches are a puppet to the owner. And when the owner has such a big influence over the club, and that owner has those relationships with those people, you can't do it. You cannot do it. It doesn't work. So it was absolutely the right decision for Roman Abramovich to do that, and for what he's doing Chelsea fans should be forever grateful for what Roman Abramovich has done for Chelsea, and what he's currently doing. He's pretty much gave everything for free. Chelsea Football Club don't need to pay Roman Abramovich the $1.4 billion in debt they are to him, or something like that. They've got new training facilities, all these trophies, all these players, all these moments, pretty much for free. So Roman Abramovich, in that sense, top guy. For pretty much everything else, you'd struggle to say that. And as a Chelsea fan, it sucks, but it's the right thing to do. And what does the future hold? Who knows, to be honest, because there's been XYZ people thrown up. There was a Swiss / American business partners looking to buy it. Conor McGregor's been looking to buy it. Yeah, they'll go down well. There's some Turkish businessmen looking to buy it. I'll probably sit down this time next week and tell you what's happened with Chelsea, but at this stage I don't know. And I'm recording this Monday the 7th of March at 4:42 p.m. So I don't know. So I could stop recording 10 minutes later, Chelsea be bought by some guy, and this will be horrendously out of date. But who knows? Let's get back to the football, for fuck's sake. Okay, Serie A. Inter Milan, so obviously the title race, we've documented that. Inter Milan won 4-0. Napoli versus AC Milan, massive game, and AC Milan won. I'm pretty sure he's away from home as well, so that is a huge win for them. That puts them 2 points clear, but Inter have a game in hand in second. So it's all to play for still. And I've said this, I want AC or Napoli to win, but that's going to be tight. And we might do something special regarding that if that goes down to the wire, as we will do for the Premier League. We'll see, though. Moving to La Liga, the Copa del Rey final has been decided. It will be Real Betis versus Valencia. They both scraped through in low-scoring affairs on aggregate. So let's see what moment comes out of the Copa del Rey final this year, because there's been so many moments from so many years, and it's a platform to make a name for yourself as a footballer. So let's see which player can etch themselves into folklore. With that, Barca and Atletico both won, so did Real Madrid. Sevilla drew, so that pretty much gives the league to Real Madrid. There are a lot of points clear. I don't know how many, but they are, and I don't think Sevilla have the minerals to catch up to them, and I don't think Real Madrid will bottle it from here. Moving to League One, it's a very hot race for top three, not top four, because only three get into the Champions League. It's Marseille, Rennes, and Strasbourg all in it at this stage, so that could go down to the wire as well. I think it's 5 points between all three teams. So, that could go down to the wire, and with the likes of Marseille, obviously Matteo Guendouzi is playing some of the best football of his career, Marseille at the moment, and it's weird how drastic of a difference his form at Arsenal was to how his form is at Marseille, because it's night and day. He's playing brilliantly. So is William Saliba, of course, and who knows what's going on with him. PSG lost to Nice, but yeah, they're going to win the league, so who really cares? Moving to Germany, the Bundesliga, Bayern Munich drew, so that gives Dortmund a little bit of a sniff. They're 9 points behind with a game in hand. It's there, but it's not, and I think Bayern just have too much quality. Anyway, moving on to the only segment on this podcast, you all know what it is. For those who don't, who went in two-footed. Now, this is a segment where I look back at the week's football and pretty much say or decide who's done something dumb, who's done something daft, who's stuffed up, who's club, player, team, anyone in the realm of football. And I'm not going to lie, just like last week, I was struggling. So I've gone with Darren England. Now, that name probably doesn't ring a bell, but he was the VAR officer for the League Cup final, and he was also the VAR officer for West Ham versus Liverpool. Now, I'm not screaming bias, I'm not screaming anything like that, but it is very, very interesting to see the different decision for pretty much the exact same thing. Now, what I mean by that is Romelu Lukaku had a goal ruled out in the League Cup final. In my opinion, that was a goal. I thought, and I still think he's onside. I don't give a shit what these little lines that don't make any sense tell me. I think he's onside. And Sadio Mane, in the game against West Ham, was in a pretty much identical scenario, and his goal was given. Both decisions were made by Darren England. Now, you can get decisions wrong. Fine. If you're VAR, I don't think you should, but you can because you're human, right? All I want is consistency. That's all I want. I would rather something or a rule be I would rather a rule be consistently wrong than inconsistently right. Because then we know what to expect, and we know what's fair and what's not, and what's correct and what's wrong. For the same thing to have two different outcomes is very frustrating, and they were very similar, and it was a tight thing to call, but it is what it is. You can't do anything about it now, which is very frustrating. Previewing the week's football ahead, we obviously got the Champions League is back. Actually, before we touch on that, there is two big games happening in two leagues. Not really big leagues, but leagues. Obviously, Manchester United versus Tottenham. There's a big game for the potential top four. I said I still think Arsenal will make top four. No problems there. But if the loser pretty much has their top four hopes put into a cannon and fired into orbit, because they won't make top four, whoever loses. And yeah, it's obviously a massive grudge match. Obviously, a lot of history between the two teams, so that'll be good to see. And the Melbourne derbies this week: Melbourne Victory versus Melbourne City. Big game for the race for the title. Big grudge match. Obviously, the match before the game a couple of weeks ago or months ago, even weeks ago, earlier on in the season, the 2-2 at Amy Park, absolutely phenomenal. Hopefully that can be half as good as that game was, because that game was enthralling. Now, moving on to the Champions League and the Europa League. Let's start with the Europa League. Round of 16, I believe, the first bracket of the draw, starting its first leg. You got Porto versus Lyon. I think Porto will get through on. I think Porto will win on that. Betis versus Frankfurt. I think Betis will get through or will win that game. We'll go Porto 2-0, Betis 1-0. Sevilla versus West Ham. I reckon it could be a draw. I'll go 1-1. Atalanta versus Leverkusen. Two really exciting teams with exciting talent. I'm going to go with 2-0 Leverkusen. I think they'll be good enough defensively to stop Atalanta. But anyway, what do I know? Barca versus Galatasaray. I think Barca should win that pretty comfortably. 3-0, I'll say. Braga versus Monaco. I'm pretty sure it's Braga versus Monaco. Anyway, hold on, wait. I'll double check that. So before I do that game, so we'll go Rangers versus Red Star. That's going to be a big game, and they're two teams that have fantastic history. Like obviously massive supporter base, and fiery. That's probably the word that comes to my mind when I think of that game. I'll go with Rangers 1-0. I think I'll go Rangers 1-0. And it is Braga versus Monaco. I think Monaco will have enough for Braga at this stage, so they'll win that 2-0. A lot of 2-0s, 1-0s, and the like. Obviously, the second half of the Champions League draw, or the second legs of the Champions League this week, Bayern versus Salzburg. That's 1-1 on aggregate, moving to the Allianz. I think Bayern will have too much. If it was the other way around and we were going to Austria, I think Salzburg would have had a big chance. But I just don't think that they can do what they did away from home. Or do what they did at home away from home. So I think Bayern will win that 3-0. I think they'll just dominate and go through over the two legs. Liverpool versus Inter. At Anfield, I love Inter, but no, I don't think they will. Liverpool on European nights are a different gravy. Liverpool at Anfield on a European night is beyond the realms of comprehension. I think Liverpool get through comfortably. We'll go 2-0, 4-0 on aggregate. Why not? City versus Sporting. Who really cares? Because City will go through. And Real Madrid versus PSG. 1-1. PSG on penalties. That's what I'll go with. So I think Real Madrid will win 1-0 at home, and it will go all the way to pens, 1-1, and PSG will win on penalties with Kylian Mbappe scoring the winning penalty. We'll go with that. Why not? He will avenge his Euro catastrophe. Yes, so that is all for this week's episode. Thank you all very much for watching. I appreciate all the love and support. Obviously, once again, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, at 2 Footy Tackle Podcast. YouTube, 2 Footy Tackle Podcast. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, the whole 9 yards. Stay well, stay safe. Hope the week's football treats you well. And see you guys next time. Goodbye.